Welcome to the Elite BSC podcast, where our entire focus is helping commercial janitorial contractors succeed. You want a growing company, a thriving team, and healthy profits, and we are here to help. My name is Jordan Tong. I'm the founder of Elite BSC, a company dedicated to helping janitorial companies grow and thrive. I also serve as CEO and one of the owners of France Building Services. France is a janitorial company employing nearly 600 people. Since 2007, we grew from 1.5 million to more than 20 million in annual revenue and built what I think is one of the best teams in the world. The goal of Elite BSC and this podcast is to give owners in the industry a vision of where their company can be and the information and tools to get there. I want to share what I have learned over the years to make this a reality for you. Hey, it's Jordan here with the Elite BSC podcast. So welcome to 2025. It's been a few weeks since I have recorded a podcast. I took a little bit of a break myself over the holidays and spent time with family, went on a little hunting trip with a couple of my boys, and have spent just a decent amount of time preparing for the new year and knocking some stuff out. And one of the things that I always do at the beginning of a year is try to at least somewhat loosely map out the things I want to read and study for the year and maybe a few tasks I'd like to accomplish over the course of a year. I try not to get too ambitious with it, but it's helpful to have a little bit of direction at the beginning of the year to help orient yourself as you move forward. So today's podcast episode, I think, is it's something I would think would be very practical, something that you could apply really easily, really quickly into the new year. And this is, we'll call it 5 tips for effective partnership meetings. So a partnership meeting is basically just a set time where you sit down with the decision maker of the customer that you're working for, and you spend some time talking about how things are going with the account. And this is a regular or semi-regular meeting that you have with them. And the idea is that in addition to everything else that you're doing, these partnership meetings help solidify the relationship, and I think are a really important part of maintaining a long-term relationship with any given client. So I think when we don't have this sort of relationship with them and we don't do partnership meetings, I think we risk losing, even if we're doing a good job, we risk losing the business because it's easy for them to sever the relationship because there's not much of one that's there. So there's a lot of reasons for doing partnership meetings. They help build trust and communication, and any relationship, regardless of what it is, it requires trust and communication and knowing one another and a bit of back and forth. And so that's what partnership meetings are designed to do. And usually this is done by, depending on the size of the account and whatnot, but usually this is done by a branch manager, a regional manager, perhaps the owner of the company will do this, the ops manager. There are times when our field managers are the ones that handle these on some of the smaller accounts. So what I want to go through is just 5 different items related to partnership meetings, things that you should include or should be in your process of partnership meetings that I think will help improve them, improve their effectiveness, and I think help maintain longer and better relationships and hopefully more profitable relationships with your clients. So number 1 is these meetings should be regular and scheduled. And so what I mean is it's not that you are just happen to be in the area, you pop in the building and you stick your head in their office and see if they're there, and if they are, you have a little ad hoc conversation with them. This is not what I would consider a partnership meeting. It's not planned. There's no specifics about what you're going to talk about. It's sort of just off the cuff. And I get it. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt sometimes to try to plan partnership meetings. And the biggest roadblock to that often is that the customer just doesn't want to meet. They're busy, and the cleaning is something that they don't really want to spend a lot of time on unless there is a big problem. And I've had people say, I'll let you know if there's a problem. What I would encourage you to do is just to push back on that and remind them of the amount of money they're spending, and just let them know that, and even if it's like, hey, I'm just asking for 5 minutes of your time or 10 minutes of your time once a month, or maybe once every other month. But, and maybe quarterly, I think, depending on the size of the account, maybe quarterly. The big accounts, you should really push for once a month. But then as they get smaller, you can maybe bump those back to quarterly. And very small accounts, you maybe could push it back further than that. But do your very best to remind them how much they're spending, and that you want to be a good steward of that money that they are spending, and make sure you're doing a good job. And it's important, in order for us to keep doing a good job, that we regularly hear from our clients that we're trying to serve. So that'd be number one, make these regular and scheduled. Tip number 2 is that I would have an agenda with me so that I can control the meeting. So what you don't want to happen in a situation like this is to walk in and just say, hey, how's everything going? And, we've all been on these, that they just immediately, and this is just the nature of it, and I don't think it's anything nefarious on the side of the client, like they just start thinking of any potential problems that have come up over the last month. And so the meeting gets kicked off maybe on a negative tone. And then sometimes, they'll say, well, let's walk around. And then they pop in people's offices and say, how's the cleaning? Which is just a recipe for getting a bunch of complaints. and I don't, regardless of how good you are as a company and how solid the relationship is, this sort of a process is not ever helpful. So I would like to set the agenda and have a very specific agenda that it's working through specific talking points and issues. So maybe you intentionally start out with some personal conversation, and then you talk about the quality of the service. But in doing that, you sort of give your assessment of things and what has gone well and what has not gone well, which helps just frame the conversation and maybe helps modify the tone of the way that conversation goes. Other items that could be addressed are maybe some past successes that you've had, upcoming needs that the customer might have. Maybe they have a big event coming up and there's some help needed, or maybe there's a plant shutdown and there's some routine maintenance that can be done. And then maybe issues. We discuss various issues that may have happened and what we're doing to resolve those. We want to guide and shape the meeting such that we have a bit of control over the direction of it, and we can monitor the tone of that meeting so that we work to continue to improve the relationship and not let it develop this negative, cloud that sort of hangs over everything. So that is number 2. Number 3 is I would make sure to reinforce value. So this is something that that Brian Lewis, our company president, that he really emphasized to me early on, and I think he had gotten this from his previous role with Cintas, is that you want to reinforce in every conversation with your client, you want to reinforce the value that you are providing them. And this is not for us to brag on ourselves, but we're naturally in a complaint-driven industry. And if we do everything right, nobody really notices. And that's a good thing. And the only time people in the facility, as a general rule, think about the cleaning is when something goes wrong. And so that can, from a perception standpoint, the client can think, man, the only time I think about cleaning or have to hear about it or someone talks to me about it is when something's not going well. And so, sure, there may be things that aren't going well, or there may have been issues that have popped up, but we need to put those in contrast with the things that have gone well. And so I think it's important for us to reinforce what that value is, remind the customer of what we're doing for them and maybe some successes that we've had, and let that, again, help put a more positive tone on the conversation, or at least balance the perspective of what's going on. Okay, that's number 3. Number 4 is I would include a quality score. Now, at our company, we've done this in the past. We now do a net promoter score, so we have a little bit more, I don't know if sophisticated is the right word, but we have a little bit of a different process here where we're sending out these net promoter score surveys, and we have a process for doing that. But if you're starting out with partnership meetings, one of the things that I would do is I would get a performance score from the customer. And you can do it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 to 10. I prefer a 1 to 10. There's a bit more of a range there. And so, and what I want to do is, and this sort of just ties into the stuff we've already talked about, I want to get a good feel for where the client thinks that we're at. And then, so like, let's say they say, hey, you are, right now we've had a few issues. I'd put you guys at a 6 out of 10. All right, that's not where I want to be. I feel like if I'm 8, I want to be 8 or above. I'll feel really solid about the account. 7 is probably okay, but you get some vulnerabilities creeping up. So what I would want to do is say, okay, you gave us a 6. What do we need to do between now and the next time that we meet that could improve our score? What specific thing could we do to get us to an 8? And then let them give you feedback on it so that they have to be specific, like to make explicit the things that they're looking for, that they want us to do. And there's another place where these quality scores can come back to be helpful is when contract renewals come around or they bid out the services again. If you have a consistent track record of, 8s, 9s, 10s, or whatever over the course of time, it helps build your case for keeping the account and it not, falling prey to someone else coming in and just snatching it up for a little bit of a cheaper price. Or if there's maybe a lapse in service for a short period of time, we can remind them of the long stretches we've had of good and how we're going to get back to there and not let the current situation, cloud out all the rest of the good that's happened in the relationship. Okay, that's number 4. Number 5, the last one is to upsell. I think, and particularly if these meetings have gone well or you're able to dig around and find out some additional needs that the client might have, I think upselling is something that we should always be looking to do. And not just merely to, increase our revenue and get some more profit, but also really look at things that we could do for the client that could be an improvement for them, that would be helpful for them, that would remove a burden from them or make them look good. You think of a whole host of possibilities of what that might look like. But we want to reinforce again that we're not just a company that can do cleaning, but maybe that we can supply products and we can power wash sidewalks and we can clean windows and we can handle recycle programs and we can replace light bulbs and we can strip and wax floors. And the more services we're able to offer, the more value we add, and also the harder it is to get rid of us, and the more profitable we become, and typically the more value that the customer gets from us in that. So this is what I would recommend. Also, just sort of tied to upselling is if things go really well in these meetings, this is also a good time if you're needing to do price increases to discuss those. On the heels of 4 or 5 good partnership meetings with good scores, and clients are satisfied, those are often good times to think about discussing that price increase, which always causes us a little bit of nervousness. And usually, it sort of greases the tracks a little bit to make that process a little bit easier, a little bit more palatable for the customer. So these are 5 tips for partnership meetings. I'd encourage you in 2025, if you're not doing partnership meetings, to get out there and meet regularly with your customers, have an agenda, include a quality score, reinforce value, upsell, and maybe get some of your price increases here. I think you'll just see that this will be a benefit to you overall to your operation. So I hope this is helpful, and we'll see you next time. If you found the information in this podcast helpful, please like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform that you're using. If you would like more resources or help to grow your cleaning company, head over to elitebsc.com. We have loads of articles, videos, free tools, coaching options, and a lot more. If your company is greater than $500K in revenue and you want to take your learning experience to the next level, check out our mastermind group. You can learn more about that at elitebsc.com/mastermind.